Yeah, so good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name is Andrew Jones from Blind Veterans UK, and this is the third session around looking at accessibility for visually impaired persons and using technology. So this session is going to be all about Android, following last week's session, which was all about iOS, and it's going to be presented by Richard Powell, who's the Rehabilitation Officer Specialist in Assistive Tech at Henshaws. So I will pass you on to Richard, and if you have any questions as we go, please add them to the chat, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. I will now pass you to Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for the introduction. So today, for those of you who joined us last week, it's going to be a fairly similar format. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the accessibility features in a similar order to James and Matthew last week. So they've given us a kind of blueprint of what to talk about. So a lot of stuff will be the same. But I'll start with a little bit of an introduction to Android. So Android is going to be very different to Apple. The reason being, Apple make their own phones, they make their own iPads, they make their own operating system, they control very much how iOS appears or how an Apple device appears to you. They keep a lot more control of the system than Android does, so that when you pick up an Apple device, it's always familiar, it's always very similar, and the behavior you expect from one device to another will be very, very similar. Doesn't quite carry to Android, which is why a lot of people struggle with Android. But the reality is there are more Android devices in the world than there are Apple devices. So when you're supporting somebody with technology, you'll probably find that more people turn up with who've got an Android phone than with an Apple phone. That is the reality of where they're at. I personally don't think it's good practice to say, oh, don't use an Android, use an Apple. I believe in meeting people where they're at, and to change the ecosystem from one type of phone to another is a big learning curve for everybody. So the thing about Android is you can buy a Samsung phone and that's got Android on it. You can buy a Motorola phone that's got Android on it. You can buy a Google Pixel that's got Android on it. But every single implementation of that Android operating system is going to be different in some cases. So although today I will be demonstrating on a Samsung phone, I will try and be giving you hints and tips that cover all Android phones. So could be a little bit different. So we'll see how we get on. But yeah, just to be aware, even if you've got an Android phone, it can be set up on a couple of settings so that it's very different. Even if one person has a Samsung and the next person has a Samsung, the two phones can still be very different. Why do people buy Android phones? Because that's what they've been recommended. By and large, they are cheaper than Apple phones. So for the same spec, you can get an Android phone a lot cheaper than you can an Apple. And I tend to find that people will be brand loyal because when they've got used to a Samsung phone, they will continue to get Samsung phones, because the pain of transferring from one type of phone to another, as I experienced a few years ago, is quite a sharp learning curve. And as a result, I always say now that I will not transfer back from Android to Apple unless there is an exceptional reason for me to do it. Like, for example, there is something that I absolutely can't do on an Android that I need to be able to do. So that's about Android. So I'm going to share the screen in a minute. I will talk through what I'm doing. There will be a little pointer on the screen so that you'll be able to see where I am tapping on the screen if you've got vision or if you're able to see that. If not, don't worry, because I'll be telling you exactly where I am tapping. So, okay, so hopefully everybody will be able to see my phone screen on there in front of them, and it's yeah, it's quite colourful at the moment. This is pretty much an out-of-the-box display that you would get on this type of phone. I have reset its factory settings so that I could go through everything from the beginning. Okay. First thing I'm going to say is across the bottom of the screen, on the left, there is a bar. On the left-hand side, there is 3 stripes, vertical stripes. Middle button is a square, and the right-hand button is a less than symbol. On different Android phones, they could be reversed. You might have the left-hand symbol on the left, and you might have the 3 stripes on the right. They may be slightly different, but they all do the same thing. So the home button is in the middle. So if you tap the middle button, it should take you to the home screen. If you tap the left-hand one, the 3 vertical stripes, which is a solid square on some phones, that will take you to the app switches where you can see all the apps that are open, and the left-hand left less than symbol is generally a back button. You may come across some Android phones that don't have those buttons on at all, in which case they'll be set up for gestures. And what that means is that like modern Apple phones, where you swipe up from the bottom to get to the home screen, the Android phone will behave exactly the same. So where you've got gestures on an Android phone, or where it's set up to gestures, the gestures will be the same for most navigation as an iPhone. Where it is set up with the buttons at the bottom, that's the way most Android phones come out of the box. So that's the more likely situation you're going to come across. Okay, so last week Jamie started with the wallpaper. So at the moment we've got a nice colourful wallpaper, which is visually quite attractive. However, it doesn't necessarily make the individual app icons pop. So the first thing I would normally do, well, not necessarily the first thing, but the first thing I'm going to do today is change the wallpaper. So to do that, I'm going to tap on the screen somewhere in the clear area where there's nothing else on the screen. I'm going to tap and hold with one finger, and that takes me to the screen where I can change the wallpapers. Okay, bottom left-hand side of the screen, there's an icon that says wallpaper and style, so I'm going to tap on that. And now I can change the wallpaper. So if I go to the color palette, okay, and sorry, it's not the color palette, it's to change wallpapers I want on this phone. And then what I want to do is go down to colors, open the colors, and for now I'm going to select the black background and make sure lock screen is ticked and home screen is ticked. Okay, click on next or tap on next, and it's gone. Now I've got a black background, so that when I swipe up to open, sorry, when I tap on done on the top right hand corner and go back to the home screen by pressing the middle button at the bottom, I've got a black background, so we're not going to lose icons on that particular background. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to do, because that's basically the first thing we can go to from the home screen. I'm going to move on now to the next challenge that we have with Android, in the fact that settings isn't necessarily always in the same place, and it's not necessarily always got the same icon. So there's a couple of ways we can get to settings, and this does change from device to device. Probably the easiest way is to flick up from somewhere in the middle of the screen, to bring up the list of icons or the list of apps that's on the phone. We have got a search bar at the top, maybe at the bottom, but what we can do is we can tap in the search bar, okay, and then type the app that we want to open. Okay, so we type settings, and halfway down the screen, the settings icon has appeared. So I can tap on that settings icon, and that will take me to the settings. Okay, another way to get to the settings, I've just shut all the apps down there, but another way to get to the settings, if I swipe up again and I've got my list of apps, sometimes these will be in alphabetical order, other times they won't. On the second row from the bottom, the third icon in is settings, so I can just tap on that, and that will take me to my settings. The other thing I can do, if I swipe down from the top of the screen, so bring my finger onto the screen from the top and flick down, on the top right hand corner there is a cog which will take me into the settings. I'm showing you 3 different ways there because I can guarantee at least one of those will work on every single type of Android phone. So next thing we've got to do is find the settings. One of the additional complications with Android is that, certainly with the settings, is that not only are they called different things from Apple, they potentially call different things between different Android devices. Okay, so obviously we've got a menu. We can scroll up and down through the menu to get to the appropriate setting. Quite often there'll be a magnifying glass, so about a third of the way down my phone screen on the right hand side there's a magnifying glass that I can tap, and that will take me into a search, so I can search for a specific setting. So how do we know what that setting is called? Well, if you know what it does, if you know what you want to do, the easiest thing is go into Google and type in Android phone setting for changing the font size, and Google will give you the actual setting that you're looking for, and then you can type it into that search bar. Or alternatively, if you know where to go, you can navigate through the menus to get to the appropriate place. The 2 main menu items that you'd probably be looking for on an Android device is going to be display, which is here. Okay, and the other one, if I tap to get back, I tap the top left hand corner. If there was a back button, I could also tap the back button on the navigation bar at the bottom. I can scroll further down the menu, and I've got accessibility down here. So those are the main 2 menu items where you'll find most of the stuff that will assist with accessibility for people with visual impairments. Okay, so I'm back on my settings screen. I've gone to the start of the settings screen. The first thing I'm going to do is go into the display. Okay, now, as I said earlier, all of these settings, I could tap on my magnifier, which is the search icon. It's now at the top right hand corner, and actually type in the name of the setting if I know it, and it will take me straight to that setting. For this particular demonstration, I am going to be going through the menus. Okay, so I'm going to display first. And Jamie last week talked about smart invert and standard or light mode. In Android, it's termed as light mode, dark mode, or dark mode settings. So at the moment, I've got it in light mode, so that's dark text on a light background. I could flick that to dark mode, and it would give you white or light text on a dark background. In the Android system, there is no classic invert, as it were. that will invert all your photos as well. It's quite smart about it. It will automatically leave your photos and any images as they are. So if I go back to the home screen, all the icons look exactly the same. It's just we've got a dark background. Okay, so back to my settings. I'll keep it in light mode. Obviously, people with different visual impairments may find light mode and dark mode helpful. It depends on the individual. It depends on how their visual impairments affects them. Certainly, people with light sensitivity would appreciate dark mode, and there may be other people that may appreciate that as well. Moving down the screen a little bit, we've got brightness. Depending on the person, depends on whether I adjust this setting or not. So the question is, can they see is the screen bright enough? And for the most part, the screen will be bright enough. But what we can do is we can actually change that brightness setting, just slide it across. Okay. It doesn't show any difference on the screen. The display screen that I've got, or the screen that you're visually seeing, but it makes a huge difference on the actual phone itself. Just a warning, the brighter the screen, the less likely your battery is to last the whole day. So if they're finishing the day with no battery at all, it might not be an idea to adjust that brightness or advise them to get a power bank. If they're finishing the day and they've still got 50% battery left, there's no issues about increasing the brightness at all. The next one down is adaptive brightness. It's a button, so it's a switch, so I can switch this left to right. With adaptive brightness on, what that means is if you're going out into bright sunshine, the screen will be brighter. If you're going into a dark area, or if you pick your screen up in the middle of the night, the screen will be dimmer, so it doesn't necessarily come on at full brightness all the time. It depends on the environment. Again, depending on the person, you may want to turn that off. Adaptive brightness is designed for people with full sight. So I've got full sight, so for me, adaptive brightness is absolutely fine, because when it adjusts the brightness, I can still see the screen across those circumstances. If people are struggling to see the screen because of the brightness level across most circumstances, it might be an idea to turn the adaptive brightness off, but keep the brightness on full. The eye comfort shield is the next item down on this particular menu. For those that have got light sensitivity, if we turn the eye comfort shield on, again, there's not a huge difference on the screen, but what it has done is it's reduced that sharpness of the bright white. So it's just dulled the bright white a little bit. Everything else remains the same brightness. Okay, so that's the main things you can do in display. There are other menu options. I'm not planning to go through all of them today because it will take forever. What I've tried to do is pick out the main ones that might have an impact on people with visual impairments. So again, what I've done is I've gone to the display option. The main items on here is light mode and dark mode and brightness settings. So those are the big wins on this particular menu. Okay, back to the main menu now. I'm going to go all the way down to accessibility. Okay, this is where most of the fun happens, and this is where most of the differences, or the big differences, can take place. On my menu here, I've got visibility enhancements. Okay, if you go into accessibility, you might have the situation on an Android phone. You go into the settings menu and you can't see accessibility. But if you can't see accessibility, it will have an advanced option, and you can tap that, and that will bring up an advanced menu with accessibility on. I've not seen the same accessibility menu on two different makes of device. So whereas I've got visibility enhancements on this, on a Google Pixel, it might be classed as something else. Okay, so just remember that search button at the top of the screen, where you can search for individual settings. As long as you know the name of the setting, you can just type it in, and that setting will appear in a menu. So I'm just going to give you a demonstration of that. If I tap the search one, okay, we've just been talking about the brightness. So if I type in brightness, okay, the top hit brightness display, if I tap on that, it takes me back to that setting, or back to that menu with the brightness on, so I can adjust the brightness. So back to accessibility menu. I'm going to come back to TalkBack later, okay, but the fourth menu option down is visibility enhancements, and that's where we'll find most of the magic. Okay, so top of the screen at the moment, we've got default, which is the default mode. We've got high contrast, which will, if we apply that, it's actually put a dark mode on. Okay, so just be aware that high contrast, even though it says high contrast, it is technically high contrast, but whether it's right for the individual maybe is another story. What I've generally found, and this is a generalization, it's not necessarily the case for everybody, people that have got AMD, macular degeneration, would prefer the light mode because there's more light to be able to get to the back of their eyes. Large display. Okay, if we take it back to the home screen, it's not made a huge difference, but generally speaking, across the phone, we'll find it. You'll find generally larger icons, generally larger text when you go into any of the apps. Okay, I'm going to leave it on default. Okay, so large display. It's just. Oh. Sorry, who would work with technology when it keeps doing things you don't expect it to do? So, as I was saying, large display, we do get larger type. So it's just all these buttons do, in effect, is adjust a series of settings within the phone. All of those settings are you can basically change individually, but all of these buttons at the top here just change specific settings within the phone. Okay, so moving down the menu, okay, what I'm going to do here is just go for the quick wins. Okay, so probably the most important thing, or the single one thing you can do that will make the biggest difference to most people is adjust the size of the font. Okay, so I've scrolled down to the bottom and I'm looking at font size and style. Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do here. We can change the font size. Okay, when we change the font size on an Android phone, you can only go up to a certain level, and that certain level is within the designs that app developers generally design to, so that you won't lose text off the bottom of the box, you won't lose words off the side of a screen. Most apps will be designed to take the maximum size of text. The only thing is, with the text size, you get less on the screen. So as Jamie pointed out last week, when you're looking at increasing the size of the text, aim for the minimum viable product, as in aim for the minimum size that they can see, because that will mean that they can get as much on the screen as possible. Above there, we've got bold font. I'm going to turn that on. Okay, just adds a little bit of pop to the font, makes the letters thick, the characters thicker, makes it a little bit easier to see. Font style, we've got default. I'm just going to turn bold font off for a second. The reason being, when I go into font style, I've got different fonts available. Okay, these are just the built-in fonts. with it being Samsung phone, we've got defaults, we've got Samsung One, and we've got Gothic Bold. I would normally select the Gothic Bold font because that automatically makes the text bold. Then if we turn the bold font on as well, it makes that font even bolder. Okay, so we've got a couple of little wins there, but the biggest win, or for most people, is just adjusting that font size. So when we go back to the main menu now, obviously it makes it much easier to see. Okay, so that was the font size and style. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is high contrast fonts. Okay, so with high contrast fonts, if we turn these on, it makes for the most part the fonts stand out a little bit more. So if turn it off again, it just shrinks the fonts a little bit. If turn it on, it makes it a little bit bigger. The fonts are a little bit bigger, and it would normally on most phones it will it's just that, sorry, with high contrast fonts, it's just the fonts that this makes a little bit bolder. Doesn't really show much on this screen because it's already a bold font and a high contrast font, but what it will do is it will adjust fonts across the phone so that if you're in an app, it will add a little bit of contrast to various fonts. Word of warning, doesn't always work the way you expect it to work. If you go into WhatsApp, I've not got WhatsApp on this phone. The WhatsApp text, all the titles of your chats are normally in bold font, bold larger font. But those titles will be, instead of an actual bold font, they'll be the outlines of the letters. So it can sometimes work against you. Check it. Go into WhatsApp, see if it works for the person. If it doesn't work for the person, turn it off. Okay. For the most part, it does work, but occasionally you may come across something where the font where it actually works against what you're trying to achieve. So just on that point, what I will say is every time you're going through the settings with somebody, just change one setting at a time. Go into a couple of apps that they use the most of, and just check to make sure that it works for them. If it doesn't work for them, turn it off. Okay, a lot of things will be a cumulative effect, but they don't work against each other. So if you apply one setting and it works for somebody, by applying another setting, it's not going to mean you need to turn the first setting back off. So one setting at a time, adjust one thing at a time, make sure it works for them. If not, change it back. If it does work, great, leave it on. Okay, so done high contrast fonts. Okay, one of the perks of a Samsung phone is that we've got an option for a high contrast keyboard. So if I tap on that and tap on the on, turn it on. Okay, at the moment, at the bottom of the screen, we can see we've got black on yellow on the keyboard. Okay, if I turn it off, we've got the standard Samsung keyboard that is by default on the phone. So a lot of people like that, prefer that high contrast keyboard. Again, turn it on. If they prefer it, great. If not, we've got various different color schemes we can try. And if none of them work, turn it off. Okay, I do find it varies individual by individual. Most people prefer the high contrast keyboard. There are exceptions. So and obviously we remember that everyone's an individual. If change one setting for one person, it's not necessarily going to work for everybody else. Okay, so back to the visual enhancements menu. We've got a few things down here like highlight buttons, color inversion, color adjustment, color filter. All of these will make a microscopic difference depending on the person. Okay, they're not going to be big wins, so I'm not necessarily going to talk about these. All right, the one I will talk about is reduced transparency and blur. If you've got a semi-transparent screen, what's going to happen is it's going to reduce the contrast to what the individual is trying to read. So quite often I will turn reduced transparency and blur on. And that means that every time they've got something on the screen, they're not seeing a shadow of whatever is behind it, which does, like I say, increase the contrast across the board. It's quite subtle, but it does make a difference. Okay. So that's everything I've done so far. Doesn't add any features to how somebody would use the phone. Doesn't change the way somebody would use the phone. All it does is changes the overall visual use of the phone. Always remember that not every app is designed with accessibility in mind. So that when you've got an app on the screen, or if you bring up an app, all of these accessibility features that we've talked about, they can overwrite, the app developer can overwrite it. Okay, so all of these should transfer across most apps, and if the app has been developed by a large-scale organization, they should be absolutely fine. I met somebody yesterday who was still doing the family accounts on an Android tablet. They were using Sage accounting software. So, and they logged into the app, and every single accessibility feature we'd put on just disappeared as soon as they pulled up the app. So it doesn't always necessarily work, but you're certainly going to increase people's chances of being able to use the apps that they want by enabling these accessibility. So moving on, I'm going to show you a feature now that is an additional feature. So it's something you can have on or off. It's an additional feature for those that were here last week on iOS. It's in effect Zoom. Okay, so it's on Android, it's called magnification. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on by enabling the magnification shortcut. So when I enable the magnification shortcut, I'll just actually open that. So the magnification shortcut could be a number of different ways to turn on Zoom or to turn on magnifier. The options we've got is tap an accessibility button, which will put an additional button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and along on the navigation bar that you can use to access different accessibility features. Press and hold volume up and down for 3 seconds. Basically, that takes 3 seconds to activate the accessibility feature. And the other option we've got is press side and volume up keys. So if I'm going to suggest against that, which is something we'll come on to a bit later, but using those keys, in effect, your volume keys and your power button can be used for different purposes on the Android phone. I usually set it to triple tap screen. Okay, it's what most people are comfortable with. Most people can, and it's 3 quick taps with 1 finger on the screen will turn it on. It's what most people are comfortable with. I'll try them with this. If this doesn't work, I will. My next step would normally be the tap accessibility button, because that accessibility button will always be in the same place on the screen. If somebody's using gestures on the phone instead of the navigation bar at the bottom, instead of tap accessibility button, it'll say something like use shortcut or use gesture shortcut, in which case it's sliding 2 fingers up the screen from the bottom to activate that accessibility shortcut. So I'm leaving this on triple tap. Okay, so I'm going to triple tap my screen. Okay, and what we've got here, what it's done is it's just zoomed in, and now we've got everything has gone bigger. I'm putting 2 fingers on the screen now to move around. Okay, so 2 fingers on the screen. Okay, I can move to different locations on the screen, and then triple tap with 1 finger to turn it off. Okay. As soon as you, like Zoom on Apple, as soon as you use Zoom, what happens is stuff falls off the side of the screen. So you lose the context of where you might be. So my normal suggestion when people are using Zoom is turn it on for a specific purpose. Okay, once you've established that purpose, once you manage to do what you need to do, triple tap, turn it off. Okay, so that's magnification. Okay, so we've done font style, we've done magnification, and we've effectively done the main themes on the visibility enhancements. So moving on to the next thing, one thing that I do tend to find is people come to me and say, I can't answer my phone. Okay, and the reason they can't answer the phone, it turns out, is they can't necessarily see the icon to answer the phone and then swipe it up the screen. There may be dexterity issues there. There may be other issues, but ultimately they can't find that button and swipe it up the screen. So one of the great things we can do on Android, okay, I'm not going to get too much into the Android versus Apple debate, but one thing we can do on Android is if we go into the interaction and dexterity option, we've got interactions, answering and ending calls. So what we could do, we've got a few good things here. We've got read caller names aloud. So if somebody's in the contacts, it will actually ring and say the name. If they're not in the contacts, it will say the number unless it's withheld, in which case your phone will say private. So I normally turn that on. Okay, and then we've got options within here, whether it's always or whether it's just whether they've got the headphones or the Bluetooth on. Answer automatically, I tend not to do unless there's a specific reason, because that takes the control away from the person on whether they want to talk to the person that's calling or not. So it's only in extreme circumstances that I would put that on, only for a specific reason. Press volume up to answer calls is something I always turn on, and press side button to end calls is something I always turn on. The reason being, if they can't see the icon on the screen and swipe that up, they'll probably be able to feel where the volume buttons are and the power button is, or side button. If they can feel those, it means they can feel where the volume up is to answer the call and press that to answer the call. They can feel where the side button is and press that to end the call. Okay. So we've covered quite a bit so far. I'm aware that it feels like I'm rushing through things, so I hope it's giving you some kind of flavour. The main thing to remember is if you can name a setting, tap the search icon at the top, type in your setting, and it will bring up those settings. If you can't think of the setting and you know what you need it to do, type in what you want it to do into Google or Android settings to answer calls on a touch of a button, and Google will give you, by and large, give you the setting name for that, and then you can put that into your search at the top of the screen. Now, this is something specific to Samsung, okay, but this is a good reason to demonstrate this on a Samsung. If we go into the accessibility and we go into installed services or installed apps, okay, what I would expect to find here on most Android phones is one called Select to Speak. It's not here on a Samsung phone. because Samsung have decided in their wisdom not to install the full Android system. And the bits that they've missed out, or one of the chunks that they've missed out, is Android Accessibility Suite. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the home screen. I'm going into the Play Store. Okay, and just go through the actual stuff that you normally get, everybody gets, just to get to the main screen where I can search for an app. Okay. If you need a password at this point, or if you need a password when you download an app, it's the password that they use for their Google account. If they don't know it, unfortunately, that you're going to struggle with downloading it. My normal advice is to go back to the person who helped set your phone up, and they should be able to download this for you. Okay, so I'm going to search at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to tap the microphone. So top of the screen where it says search apps, there's a microphone at the right hand side. I'm going to tap that. Accessible. Oh, it's asking me for permission now to use the audio. So continue while using the app. Accessibility Suite. Okay, and then what will always come up first is some kind of sponsored ad, but below the sponsored one, we've got this one here, which is Android Accessibility Suite. Okay, so I'm going to tap that. Okay, now something important here, which we'll talk about in more detail in the next session, is the Android Accessibility Suite is by Google LLC. So it says underneath Android Accessibility Suite, it says Google LLC. That means that it's Google that have developed it. With it being Google that have developed it, it means it's part of the Android operating system. Okay. If it was created by Dodgy Dave at number 6, I'd be querying installing this app at all. Might not say Dodgy Dave, obviously, because Dodgy Dave doesn't want to go as Dodgy Dave, and apologies to anyone called Dave on the call. The fact that it says Google LLC means I'm happy it's by somebody who, by and large, will obey the law of the land. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories, but the reality is, if you're using Android operating system, you've already given all your permissions to Google anyway. So by installing this, you're not giving any more permissions. They can't get any more information from you. So I'm going to install this. It's usually fairly quick to install. Okay, and what you'd expect most of the time when you install an app is that it will, or install something from the Play Store, what you expect most of the time is it will appear as an app on your device. Android Accessibility Suite doesn't. But if I go back to settings, okay, on that installed apps, we've got another couple now. We've got select to speak and we've got accessibility menu. Okay, I'm going to ignore accessibility menu. Basically because it's very hit and miss across devices. Okay, I'm going to go to select to speak because this is common across all Android devices if you've downloaded Android Accessibility Suite. So if I go into select to speak, what I need to do is select turn the select to speak shortcut on and allow permissions. Okay. Again, we've got that menu that we had with magnifier. How do we want to turn this on? Okay, for select to speak, I found by and large the easiest way is to tap the accessibility button. And what that will do is it will turn on an extra button at the bottom of the screen across the navigation bar. I'm going to tap on OK to give it permission. And I'm not sure if you can see here at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Okay, we've got an extra little symbol across the navigation bar. What that means now is if I tap on that symbol, and then tap on a piece of text,
Select to speak shortcut.
it actually tells me what that text says. If I wanted to cover a bit more of the screen, I can tap on this accessibility symbol. I can drag my finger over a couple of
Select to
items.
speak shortcut. Tap accessibility button. Settings.
Okay, so because I've dragged my finger over those 3 items, it's said all of them out loud. If I want to, I can tap the accessibility button, and just next to the red button that's appeared on the bottom right hand side of the screen, to the left of that, there's a play symbol. So I can
Navigate up. Select to speak. Select to speak shortcut. Tap accessibility.
and then tapping on that red dot will stop the select to speak. Okay, so we've got a few options there, which should give people control. These are very much settings for somebody who's got some useful vision and is able to pick up some visual clues from the screen of the phone. So we've covered about the visual settings or display settings that don't change anything on the phone at all, and you just use the phone in exactly the same way. We've talked about a couple of settings that are additional features that you can. So magnification with the triple tap. Oh. Okay, so you've got magnification with the triple tap. We've got select to speak.
Press and hold volume up and down keys for 3 seconds.
Okay, and those are additional features over and above what you would have, or additional features that can be used to help navigate around the phone. Okay. So we're going to move on to TalkBack shortly. But before I get onto that, one of the big wins that I always use is Google Assistant. Okay, so with Google Assistant, the same with Siri, you can do a lot of basic functions on your phone. So if you're using Google Assistant or Siri, you can say, call Richard. If you're using Google Assistant or Siri, you can say, text Richard. Okay, so if, for example, I press and hold the home button, okay, because this is in effect an out-of-the-box phone, it's asking me for permissions. So I'm just going to say use Gemini. Okay, so what I've done is just said yes. What I'm doing is I'm pressing and holding the home button again to activate it, and now it's listening to me. So what time is it? What time is it?
10:51 a.m.
Okay. So that was fairly quiet, but it gave me the time. So once you've activated Google Assistant or Google Gemini by pressing and holding the home button in this case, on more modern phones, this is an older model, on my Google Pixel, I would press and hold the side button to get exactly the same effect. You can set it so you can say, hey, Google as well, and actually activate it by voice. But once you've activated Google Gemini, like I can say, you can say, text Richard, WhatsApp Richard, call Richard on WhatsApp, call Richard. You can give it any of those instructions and it will carry those out for you. If you're using Google Maps, for example, you can say, take me to Manchester Central Library walking, and it will give me walking directions to Manchester Central Library. It takes out a lot of time. For example, when you're making a call, going into the phone app, finding the contacts, tapping the call button, you can just bypass all that and just say, call Richard. So Google Assistant, Google Gemini, Siri, very useful for that. Okay, so believe it or not, those are the easy wins. They don't change the behavior of the phone. Moving on to TalkBack now. So Matthew last week talked about voiceover. Voiceover and TalkBack are primarily designed for people that have got no useful vision or actually need the additional assistance of the phone speaking to them. It changes the behavior of the phone completely. So just be careful about TalkBack. The first thing I'm going to do is turn it on and show you how I would set it up. Okay, so I'm going to go into settings. I'm going into accessibility. Okay, and TalkBack. Okay, it's asking me, do I want to turn it on? So first thing I'm going to do is go to TalkBack shortcut and turn that on. Okay, I'm going to allow it permission, and it says hold volume up and down keys. Okay, I can change that if I want to. So it's the accessibility button or the side and volume up buttons together. The reason why I tend to avoid side and volume up is because those two buttons are used, I've already set for answering and ending a call. So it can get a bit confusing if you use those two buttons as the same shortcut. Okay, so we've got different options. If somebody's not using the spoken content or select to speak, I'd probably set this up on the tap accessibility button. But for the most part, if I am enabling TalkBack, I will set it up on the volume keys for 3 seconds. So that's volume up and volume down for 3 seconds. Okay, so that's the TalkBack. So we can turn it on the screen. Okay, it's giving us a warning. Okay, I'm going to allow it.
TalkBack on.
Okay, so hopefully you've all heard that TalkBack is now on. So now I've got TalkBack on. If I tap the home button, previously I would have expected it to take me home.
Home button window navigation bar.
Okay.
Double tap to activate.
Okay, so what it's done is it's just said, home button, there's a bit more to it, and then double tap to activate. So by single tapping on my phone, on my screen, it's not going to take me, it's not going to tell me, sorry, it's not going to actually take me and activate that thing that I touch on, which is what the standard tap on a phone would do. So when I say it changes behavior, let me tell you about Barry. I got a call from Barry's wife, who was sitting in a car park with Barry, and all I could hear from Barry was, I'm going to throw this effing phone out the window. I'm going to smash this effing phone to bits. That's all I could hear in the background. What had happened, somebody thought they'd be helpful and turned TalkBack on. So I was able to talk his wife through turning TalkBack off and then arrange an appointment for them to come in and see me so that Barry wasn't throwing his phone out the window. And then when they came in to see me, I was able to go through the accessibility and how TalkBack worked properly with them so that Barry understood what was happening. So we've got TalkBack, it's turned on. Okay, we've set up the accessibility shortcut. So if we lose ourselves, if we forget what to do with TalkBack on, we can press and hold the volume up and volume down button for 3 seconds.
Use volume keys for TalkBack. Press and hold both volume keys for 3 seconds to use TalkBack. You can select a different function in Settings, Accessibility, Advanced Settings.
Okay, and this is my prompt to say, always test the accessibility shortcut, because on this particular occasion it's now asking for permission. So I'm going to tap on use
button
and then double tap
TalkBack. Navigate up button.
Okay,
double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
Okay, so I'm going to press and hold the volume up and volume down button.
TalkBack off.
Okay, so just turn TalkBack off. Okay. I'm going to turn it back on again so I can actually do the TalkBack demonstration. But just a word of warning: if you're not comfortable with TalkBack, if you've not had a go at it, if you don't know how to turn it on and off, it's probably best to avoid it until you're confident in being able to turn it on and off. The first thing I show anybody, or the first thing I demonstrate to anybody, whether it's VoiceOver or TalkBack, is how to turn it on and off. And that way they have still got access to the phone the way it used to be, the way they're familiar with it. So if I turn it back on.
TalkBack on. Held volume keys. TalkBack turned on.
Okay, so turn TalkBack on.
Navigate up button window TalkBack.
Okay.
Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
This is where I get upstaged by the phone. So what it's done is, as with VoiceOver, what will happen is when TalkBack talks to you, it will tell you what it's focused on the screen. At the moment, it's focused on the back button. I've then got a choice. Do I want to interact with that button? Or do I want to interact with what it's just told me? If I do, I can double tap anywhere on the screen with a single finger. If I don't want to interact with it, I can move that focus somewhere else. So because I've got a navigation bar at the bottom of the screen, if I put my finger on the navigation bar,
Home, recents, back button, home button. Double tap to activate. Double tap to activate.
okay, it means I can quickly get to the main buttons to navigate around the phone. Okay, I'm going to put the focus back on the back button.
Navigate up button window TalkBack.
And the way I did that
Double
was just
tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
And the way I did that was I just tapped on the back button. So I can literally touch the screen at the bottom to go onto the navigation bar and slide my finger across it. I can also put my finger anywhere on the screen.
Settings, TalkBack shortcut, hold volume up and down keys, 2 of 4. Double tap. TalkBack, navigate up, button. Double tap to activate.
Okay.
Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold to long press.
Okay, so I can put my finger on the screen and I can move it around. It's a bit random, but if I know the approximate position of a specific button on the screen, I can put my finger near there and move it around until I find that particular item that I want to move the focus to. The other way of moving focus is exactly the same as with VoiceOver on Apple. I can use one finger and it's like flicking a piece of dust off the screen. So if I flick from left to right,
TalkBack,
I move to the next item on the screen. If I flick from right to left,
navigate up, button.
okay. If I flip from right to left, I move to the previous item on the screen. So if I didn't know what was on the screen, I would flick, or if it was new to me, I would use the flick gesture to navigate all the way down to the bottom of the screen to give me an idea of what was on that screen, and then I'd click back up right to left to get to the item that I wanted to interact with. When I'm on the item that I want to interact with, if I double tap one finger anywhere on the screen.
Accessibility. Navigate up, button.
Okay, so what I've done is I've just double tapped on the screen and it's taken me back because it was the back button. Okay, if I tap on home.
Home, button window navigation bar.
Okay, and then double tap.
Home. Weather. Double tap and drag to move in pager.
Okay, I've got to the home screen. Okay, so there are lots of different gestures you can use with TalkBack in the same way there's lots of different gestures with VoiceOver. Okay, the flick left and flick right one is exactly the same. The double tap is exactly the same. So it's the same on Apple as it is on Android. Okay, now one of the differences between Apple and Android is the number of fingers you use for swiping. So if I want to get to the apps screen, if you remember when I started this demonstration, it was just one finger flick up the screen to get to the app screen. Because TalkBack is on, I'm going to use 2 fingers and just flick them.
Samsung folder out of pager.
Okay, so all I've done is put 2 fingers on the screen and flicked up, and that has got me onto the app screen. If I wanted to go onto the next screen, I'm using 2 fingers and I'm going to flick or swipe from right to left.
Play Store. Double tap to activate. Double tap and hold 2 long press actions available. Use tap with 3 fingers. Button.
Okay, and that's taken me to the next screen. So the main gestures for TalkBack, so the common ones with TalkBack and Siri is 1 single finger, flick left or flick right to navigate to the next item or the previous item on the screen. You've got your double tap with 1 finger, and that will interact with the item that you're focused on, or the TalkBack or Siri is focused on. And then it slightly differs after that, but certainly with Android, it's 2 fingers to swipe, to flick up or down to go between the different screens, or flick left and right to go between the different screens. If you're on a menu,
Recents, but settings 3, accessibility.
okay, so
Navigate up button out of list.
okay, so I've gone back
Double
onto,
tap to activate.
so I've gone back onto the accessibility menu. What I'm going to do is put 2 fingers on the screen and slide up, and what it will do, okay, as I'm sliding 2 fingers up the screen, there was a tone beeping. The higher the tone is, the nearer you are at the bottom. The lower the tone is, the nearer you are to the top of that list. So if you're aware of an approximate position of where something is in that list, you can listen to the tones to get you to the point that you might want to be. Okay, and that pretty much brings me to the end of the Android demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, and I'm going to pass back to Andrew to see if there's any questions or anything that I need to be answering.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I'll just do the comments first. There was an initial comment from David Brown around the non-uniformity of Android and the infinite configuration across not only different brands, but models within manufacturer's range. It makes it hard to work with as a trainer, as you often have to work out the differences before applying set fault finding. For this reason, we are biased towards Apple. Could an app help to make the accessibility settings more uniform across different flavors of Android? And then Sam Whittemore just made a little comment following that, saying, not sure about an app, David, but Richard, recommend asking Google to tell you what setting it is called in the model, if the model the person has.
Yeah, I sent. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, David. Yeah, carry on, David.
I was just going to say I sent that before you downloaded the accessibility suite, which I think probably answered part of my question. But the idea was that you've got an accessibility app that sort of brings every Android, regardless of model, make or flavor, as I said, it brings it back to more of a uniform sort of dashboard. Which will then effectively change what you need to change, regardless of how it is presented within that particular version of Android. So I don't know how far Accessibility Suite will go for that, but that might be one way of making it a little bit more conventional to use. Apple is great. If there's an issue with one issue on Apple, it tends to be fixed very quickly because it's generally across every single device on that, be it a phone or an iPad or whatever else. Whereas Android tends to be a little bit more disassociated with the main sort of software. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is one of the things about the Android ecosystem is there's so much more variety, so much more flexibility, and so much more ability by suppliers to do what they want to do. What I've tried to do is literally go through and hopefully give you the instructions or give you guidelines so that will work across all Android devices. Hence if you know the name of the setting, do a search. That works across all Android devices. And you're absolutely right. Some Android devices will not have Accessibility Suite built in. Some Android devices, even if you download Accessibility Suite, you won't get all the accessibility features. And some, when you put TalkBack on, because they're a very low spec model, when you put something like TalkBack on, it just clogs the whole phone up because they're not designed for that level of processing. These are the issues you're going to run across, which is why I say if you do one setting at a time, see how that works. If it doesn't work for the individual or it doesn't work with the actual phone, move on to the next setting. I totally agree with you that it's much easier to focus on one type of device, but the reality is, that if people start with a Samsung phone, it's not really in my remit to say you've got to change to an Apple phone to get this accessibility. I can show them what's available on Apple and how Apple works and leave the choice in their hands. But I always see my role is to get the best for them out of their existing device and show them options.
So totally agree with you. I must admit, I do prefer the magnification gestures on an Android phone to that on Apple, where you zoom. I just don't understand those gestures where you've got to put three fingers on the screen to initiate it. And then, if you're dragging it around, you've got three fingers on the screen. You're covering half the screen. And it's completely pointless. I don't understand that. I find Android a lot easier to use from that point of view.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, David. Yeah, just a quick question, which might have been answered again from Diane Fonseca. Is select to speak the same as voice access? And Sam, again, as I said, select to speak will only speak the item you select. Voice access is entire device navigation, full voice control. They are different accessibility needs.
Right. Okay, so it comes about input and output, as the term that I used in computer science when I was younger. Voice activation, voice control is about you telling the device what you want it to do. Spoken content like speak, screen speak, select to speak, they're about the device telling you what you want to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've got a question from Emma Dutton. Can both the magnifier and text to speak use the accessibility button at the same time?
Yes, they can. If you've got more than one thing set up to accessibility button, what happens is a pop-up box appears on your screen with all the specific accessibility features you've got linked. It's by and large, it's much easier just to have one thing, because if you've got one, if you've just got select to speak on your accessibility button, you'll automatically go into select to speak. If you've got select to speak and, for example, magnification on your accessibility button, you'll then have to choose between one of those two items when you tap your accessibility button.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to try and do this in timeline order. So we've got a couple of hands, then a couple of chat questions to follow. So, Jason Scott, your hand was up first.
Thank you. Just a couple of observations, actually. Ending and answering calls, which you mentioned, Richard. As far as I'm aware, it's only Samsung that does that. Any other Android phone doesn't have that option.
Yeah,
as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, Samsung does have it. I've got a Google Pixel, access to a Google Pixel as well, and that also has it. But okay. I absolutely hear you.
A lot of the like other ones don't, because I had a Motorola and that didn't work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Other ones as well. Also, accessibility app. So you can go through the menus through settings and go to accessibility. Certainly with Samsung phones, you can if you go to accessibility in the settings and then click on the 3 dots at the top of the screen, you can actually add the accessibility app to your home screen, which is quite useful.
Great point.
And one question actually. As far as I know, you can't make the keyboards any bigger, can you?
There's a slight cheat on the keyboards. If you turn your phone onto landscape mode,
Yeah.
the keyboard has got more space to spread out into, so you get it will be wider, but it'll still be might be slightly shorter, but it will be wider. The danger when you do that is it might split across the screen, in which case you can go into your keyboard settings and select full width or split keyboard. So you can. So that's the only way to make the keyboard bigger. Obviously, if you're not too worried about portability, you can get a Bluetooth keyboard and connect that, and that'll give you a full size keyboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, and then next question is from Carly Waters. You got your hand up, Carly?
I can't see me. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah. Oh, there you
go. Hello. Yes. I had some customer who have Samsung Android phone, and they struggle to see the PIN numbers and log in. Is an easy way for them to access and log in to their phone? Like, I know iPhone, you could log in by Face ID or fingerprint, but I just wonder how people access through Samsung phone or Android phone.
Yeah, great question. Security and authentication is always going to be a very tricky one in the sight loss world. So it depends on the manufacturer of the phone is the quickest answer. So on my Samsung phone, I've only got fingerprint access or the PIN code. I've also got, we can also use a pattern, so it's like drawing a shape on the screen, but you've got to get that in kind of the right place to be able to do that. On my Pixel phone, I've got Face ID as well, so it does very much depend on the manufacturer. If you can set up biometrics, that is always going to be a less painful way of getting access to your phone, but depending on the environment that you're in, you may need to resort to traditional methods. So yeah, great question, and it's always going to be that balance between security and ease of access as well. So there's a few things to think about there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, next question we've got is in the chat from Natalie Kemp. So can I ask, is it possible to make the apps larger?
On some, yes. So the actual, I mean, there's a couple of things around that. So yes, it's possible. So you'll need again to put the if you type into Google what you want to change. So I want to change the icons size on an Android phone or a Samsung phone, and Google will tell you the setting, and then you can type that setting into the search bar. So yes, it's possible. It's not something I implement a lot. An alternative way of doing it is if I've got Google Assistant, I can say to Google Assistant or Google Gemini, open Seeing AI or open Be My Eyes, and it will automatically open the app, which is an alternative way of doing it.
Thank you, Richard. And then we've got Kathy, I presume her surname's not RT, Kathy, but we've got Kathy RT up. And which app is best for speech to text, please?
When you're saying speech to text, as in transcription, it's not something I'm an expert on, I'm afraid, because that's more about hearing loss. Did you want to expand on that just to make sure I'm going in the right direction?
Yeah. So basically a speech to text. So you're a person speaking and then it'll convert on the phone for into text. So it's a person who may be deaf, maybe it's somebody they don't know, asking, or somebody asking them a random question, for example. So do you know which apps are best on the Android phone for that type of functionality?
Short answer is no. I'm sorry, because I actually, I work with sight loss primarily. So apologies, I can't answer that question for you, I'm afraid.
That's no problem. Thank you ever so much anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, next one. I apologise if I butcher the pronunciation of your first name, but is it Anna K. Jeffrey? And question, after Google Assistant has integrated with Gemini, I find it tricky to find the setting to activate the Hey Google feature. Where do you find it?
So if you go into your settings, type in a search for, or you can type in voice assistant on the search for settings, and that should take you to your voice assistant. And then when you take your go into voice assistant, you've got an option for the voice activation, not voice activation, the actually activate with Hey Google. If you go to Google, if you go into settings and then Google, and then quite often there's recommended apps and or recommended settings and all settings. You'll need to tap on the all, and that will give you an option on your menu for voice assistants, etc. And if you select that, there should be an option to be able to program your voice to say, "Hey Google."
Yeah, Brendan Salmon has just put, I think, a bit of an answer to this as well. So if you press the settings icon on top right of the keyboard, you can adjust the keyboard size in transparency to be longer. Oh, it's a slightly different question, but yeah, to be longer than the standard keyboard, so letters appear bigger, but you cannot make it wider. Might be different for different Android devices. This is for a Samsung A10.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks for
that. Brendan. Yeah, and then Jason Scott, you got your hand up?
Sorry for butting in again. Just on the making the icons larger. With Samsung phones again, you've got the option to change it to easy mode. If anybody knows about that, which is actually can be quite useful. It makes the icons bigger, but also it gives you a page on the next screen that gives you a full screen of contacts, and you can put your contacts into those individual ones and use it as a shortcut for ringing people rather than having to look through your contacts and stuff. So that's quite useful. Also, just to mention that the Easeability, which is kind of I think it's a paid for app, but again, I've had a bit of success with that, where it's a piece of software that effectively changes your apps to bars, a bit like Synaptic. So it can be quite sort of high contrast and bigger and easier to find as well. That's quite a useful one.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, that's really good information. I think I mean, from what the questions are coming, it just shows us so many different ways to do different things across Android devices, and all of these tips are really good. So if you again, when I do an appointment, I usually start with what are you trying to achieve, because if all they want to do is make a call and receive a call, I can set up Google Assistant for that, or Google Gemini for that, and I can, or I can put if they just want to call one person, I can put that person on the front screen. So it depends on what people are trying to achieve, on how I would set up the phone. Obviously, today's been more about generally how can we make it easier with an Android phone.
Thank you. Yeah, so a question from Susan Davis. Hi, reading out text messages and replying verbally on a Motorola phone. Any suggestions appreciated?
So if you you will need to set permissions for this, but you can use Google Gemini and say read messages. First time you do it, it will ask you for explain that the permission needs to be set, and the permission is for Google to be able to access your notifications. Once you set that, when you say read messages, it will actually read the any text messages or WhatsApp messages out to you in the same way that Siri will.
Richard, yeah, and then just a note from Carly Waters, RE speech to text. As far as I'm aware, the newer Samsung mobile phone have similar to Relay UK app, but automatic translate the phone calls into text. There are some useful speech to text apps such as Live Transcribe, free on Android, and NAL Scribe, etc.
Yeah, thanks for that brilliant information. I will take that on board because it's not something I'm familiar with at all. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. There's no more hands raised or questions on the board, and we're really come up to time, Richard. So just say a big thank you to everybody. The next session will be at the same time next week. So if you haven't got an invite for that, please get in touch with me, and we'll send that invite out again. But just say a big, huge thank you to Richard this morning. That was really fascinating. Yeah, thank you very much, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.